Шановні колеги, продовжуємо. У нас була невеличка технічна затримка.
Dear colleagues, we will continue. We had a technical pause, and now we have the next candidate, Олександр Новицький.
Доброго дня.
Say good afternoon.
Пане Олександре, вітаю.
Alexander, good afternoon. You can see that there are 6 members of the commission, so 3 persons online and 3 persons offline. And I would like to give the floor now to Alla Ivanovska. She will be the main interviewer. So over to you, Alla. Thank you, Tatiana. Alexander, good afternoon. The first question I want to ask you is a question from the public, from the civil society, actually. So the public drew the Commission's attention to a significant number of errors, mistakes in your declarations for different years. So here we can talk about mismatch of area of the property. Thus, in the declaration for 2018, you indicated 140,140 square meters of the house, which is an evidently a mistake. And the land plot under it was only 0.23 square meters. Also, there were some discrepancies in the value of property. For instance, your wife's house in the next declaration became different in the following declaration. Also, there was a lack of some information which was supposed to be in the declaration. For instance, you did not indicate the value of your wife's and her parents' car. Also, you did not indicate the value of the apartment in Crimea, and there were different dates of acquiring the property rights. Thus, you indicated your wife's house in the declarations for different years with the different dates of obtaining the house, and there were also some obviously technical errors. In this regard, the public is interested in how responsible your attitude to a declaration is, and what are the reasons of such discrepancies and errors in your declarations. Thank you. Thank you for your question, and I will be happy to provide all the necessary explanations. I do not think that there were many errors because there is explanation for each of such cases. I looked at the questions asked by Transparency International. They were publicly available, so I can start with the house, first of all, and the value of the house which belongs to my wife. Actually, in 2018, when this house became a real estate object, I took its value from the technical passport, and there is very specific sum there, up to 1 hryvnia. And then when I learned more, after I had consultations with my colleagues at the National Corruption Prevention Agency, I decided to take information from the document establishing the right to this property, and the amount there, the sum there, was 498 hryvnias cheaper, less, because that is because I took these numbers from different sources. And as for the value of cars, one of which still belongs to my father-in-law, a Volkswagen, produced in 2001. This car was bought in 2013. According to the technical passport data, but it was the period of time when we were not acquainted with my wife, and we were not married. So this transaction happened with and I did not have any information about it. They did not have any supporting documents, and for what I know, there were no registers with this kind of information. So I was asking myself a rhetoric question: what value should I put in the declaration? Just approximate number, or that would not be the exact number? So according to the explanation of NACP in the declaration, I put that I chose the option value is unknown, and the same goes for the other car of my wife. It was purchased before our marriage, our wedding, so there were no confirming documents about the value. So this is not the information that I had, and that is why, according to the explanations of NACP, I chose the option that the information about the value is not known. What were other questions? According to the organization that I mentioned, what were other questions? We cannot hear you. Allah, you are muted. Sorry. Also, there was a question about the area of the house and the area of the land plot. As for the area, of course, 140 square meters, of course, it's not 140,000 and 140. It's either technical error of the register or maybe my mistake. So the area is 140.5 square meters. That is the total area of the house. So this is the correct number. And why the system shows it like this, I'm not sure. I can not really get this information. Maybe the NACP can check why it was like this. Maybe back then the register was not ready for so many people submitting declarations. So maybe there were some problems with the operation of the register. Okay, thank you. And another question: since the Crimea was temporarily occupied, you have visited Crimea 4 times. Can you explain the purpose and the time of each visit? Thank you for this question. And this question and all the related facts, for me, they are all very painful, because the fact that Crimea was occupied, was taken away from us unlawfully, that is a big tragedy for me and for our country. So the first response that I gave to the Commission, but I'm ready to repeat it for the public: when occupation of the Crimea started, it was a process. I just want to remind you that there were some hopes that maybe like Crimean Tatars and some civic movement will be able to change the situation. And during this period, I visited my mother, who lives there since 1978, and I tried to convince her to relocate. We were talking about possible risks, about the future, but back then I was not able to convince her. On the one hand, I did not have enough possibilities to provide for her. I did not have an apartment of my own, but she had her house there, and she appreciates the apartment that she has in Crimea. She's did not really want to leave it, so she decided to stay as many other elderly people. And my next visits, they were also related to the same story. I tried to convince her again, and one of my goals also was that I was getting ready to get married, to propose, and I'm quite conservative, so I wanted to get her approval. I wanted to share this my plans with her, and so then I got married with my mother agreeing to that, and my wife and I, we went to visit my mother, my grandparents who were alive back then. It was the third time, and then the most recent time, the last time, if I'm not mistaken, it was in 2017, I guess, or 2018 maybe. So it was when my son was 1 year old, and we came to Crimea so that he could get acquainted with his grandmother and grandfather. I visited my mom again, so she did not change her decision back then, and I can say that as of today, it was a tough decision, and I spent a lot of time to change my mother's opinion, but my mother is now here with me. So your mother lives with you in Kiev now, in Kiev region. She lives with us in Kiev region. That's correct. So the next question. So Alexander, according to the official web site of the State Reserve of Ukraine, there is a person who is your deputy, and there are criminal proceedings against him. Did you respond in any way after he became a defendant in these proceedings, and what was your response to your deputy being a defendant in criminal proceedings? I will thank you. Really thank you for this question, and I will explain why. I will try to answer in 3 minutes that I have according to our agenda, and according to the documents of the State Inspectorate of Architecture and Urban Planning. The head is not appointing his deputies. It belongs to the Cabinet of Ministers, and this person, this deputy, was appointed by the Cabinet of Ministers when I was not the head of the state inspection yet. And when I took this position in March last year, from the very first days, I raised this question because I realized the reputation risks related to this person taking a managerial position in an important state agency, which also relates to corruption prevention in the country. And I raised this question with the new minister, Mr. Kubrakov, who coordinates our activities, and he agreed with my concerns about the reputation risks. But at the same time, according to the legislation and according to the labor code, we were not able to initiate a decision. The decision had to be initiated not by us. And I had a conversation with this person. I explained to him how the things were, and that I saw all these risks to the reputation, and he said that he does not have this final decision of the court, so he is not his guilt is not confirmed yet. That is what he told me. And here we had some kind of different opinions on this matter, but he said that he will find a different job and he will resign. And your question, it actually proves that I was right, that there were and there are such risks to the reputation of the State Inspection of Architecture and Urban Planning, and because we have some adjustment to them because of the martial law, I decided to redistribute some duties and obligations in the agency, and here I made a decision and he's not actively working now. He's not engaged in the activities of the state inspection, and I submitted a proposal to the ministry saying that the state inspection, according to the decree of the Cabinet of Ministers, that the staff in structure will be optimized, and I said that it does not make sense for me to have 4 deputies, so I suggested to just have 2 deputies instead of 4. So I hope that we will have this optimization, and this I hope that this person will be dismissed and we will avoid these risks. Thank you. So the next question, Alexander. Your subordinate, Katerina Kovbasyuk, listed as the author and the last editor of your autobiography file submitted for the competition according to the metadata. Also, the same person, Katerina Kovbasyuk, called the commission secretariat during her working hours, and she inquired on your behalf about the correctness of the documents submitted for the competition. So how can you explain this? Well, first of all, I do not know about her doing any actions during her working hours, which are not related to my professional activities in the State Inspection of Architecture and Urban Planning. And we really worked with Katerina in different agencies. We know each other for a long time. She's a good specialist and expert in many issues. And really, I did consult with her. I asked her to prepare some documents because I know that she is a good expert in the documentation, but we did this beyond the working hours, and this was probably her initiative, but we will discuss it and we will talk about it. Thank you. Thank you. And another similar question. The author of your motivation letter file that you submitted to the selection is Konstantin Parashchenko. So the person with the same initials, the same family name works at NACP, and we consider that it is the same person. And also, Konstantin Parashchenko is listed as the last editor of your answers to the questions from the inquiry sent to you by the Commission, and the last editor of your strategic vision essay. So how could you explain the situation? Thank you for this question. It can be easily explained. The fact is that my personal computer has not Windows but a different system, and it is not very convenient to do formatting of the documents, and on my Google Disk I have all those documents which were created and edited by me personally. But according to all the requirements of the Commission on formatting of the text, I was not able to do all those things to meet all the requirements on my computer. So I asked him to download these documents from my Google Disk to do the formatting and then send me. It's just a technical issue. I can show you all this. All these documents were written by me, and it has the style which is typical for me. If you look at other works, other texts that I wrote, and with some details that were only known to me. So it's not that I was using someone else's text. That's not true for sure.
Are you a friend with this person? We work with this person in one department in NACP, in the Department of Conflict of Interest, if we're exact. And then in a certain time, I offered him to transfer to the state inspection of architecture and building. So we had good working relationship in NACP. And today also, it is nothing else other than a working relationship. We continue our cooperation. He strengthened the internal control at the State Inspection for Architecture and City Building, and he is the head of the department. Thank you. Dear colleagues, I'm done with my questions. Maybe anybody else has questions to Alexander too. Well, so that it is easier, let us go back to the authors of different files. In the last case, you're saying that the real author of the files are you, and your colleague only changed the format. So what was the format that he changed from and to? No, he did not convert them from format to format, but it was a technical process. It's quite convenient for me because I have a tablet, I have an iPad and a computer in one system, one technical system. I mostly work with documents. It is convenient for me in Google Docs. That's where all of my documents were formed that I later sent to the commission. But at the same time, when I was doing that, when I finished doing that, in order to format it in the way that is convenient, all the technical details, I have already mentioned them. Those are the size of the font, the fonts, all of the other details that was requested by the commission. I just asked Konstantin to do this on his computer because he has Windows operation system. I don't have MS Word, I have Pages, and you indeed need to convert that. And there are many technical things there that do not correspond each other, do not work well together. To clarify the situation, I can open or send you limited access to my cloud. You will see the metadata that is there, and you will see how my document was created, that I created it. I think that we'll take a look at that, but at the same time, I don't know that Google Docs does not allow you to change the font size or fonts or anything. No, the difference was in symbols. I think the difficulty of the task, if you're talking about strategic vision, was in the number of symbols. According to the previous check, in different systems, in different programs, the number of symbols differs. I use almost every symbol. It's 10,000 in the limit. We're talking about the motivational letter. I'll get to that. I'm now talking about the two questions about the motivational letter and the strategic vision, right? That's why, because in that part, I calculated there was a difference when we were looking and calculated the symbols in Word and in those programs where I worked. So we realized that we need to send it in Word. We needed to convert, to change this, to check it. And what happened with the motivational letter? It's small, but it wasn't the issue of the number of symbols. It was just the formatting again. Your colleague, your former colleague, at the same time, did he create a new file? Or did he just, no, he downloaded, as far as I remember, he downloaded the file from the cloud. Then I would understand in this case that he's mentioned the last editor, but why is he the author? In which sense is he the author? Are you talking about metadata now? Could you please listen to the question first? I'm talking about metadata, yes. And as an author, the person is stated there whose computer it is, whose account is linked to the operation system. If you created that, it would have said Alexander Novitsky. But if Konstantin Parashenko created the file, then he is mentioned there as an author. That's hence my first question. Did he save a new file, or did he work with your file? Once again, every word, every text was written by me on Google Docs online, but I'm talking about the file, not in Google Docs now. How he later formatted it technically, I don't understand what else you need to know, what else you need to add. Do you have the version of the file that you provided him? Yes, of course. Do you mean he renamed his file? He could have renamed that file, yes. Did he rename it, or could he have renamed it? You did something important for you. You are submitting your application. And do you notice something? I understand we're talking about some technical details. It's not a technical detail. It's the things that we use to check whether your testimony is truthful, that you are the real author. Yes, I told you where the source data, where the raw data is, and I will provide you this information. Okay, we do hope that your statements will end up to be truthful. The next question. When did your wife work in the State Agency for Architecture and City Building? She has worked there since 2021 till the beginning of 23. When were you appointed the head of the organization? In March 23, she was let go by the previous head before he quit this position. Now, we did not work together when I was the head of the organization. Another question then. Can you tell us about the house that we discussed? Was it bought or was it built with your own methods and powers? Thank you for the question. This house was built mostly with our own powers. I want to leave with the commission the photographs that I took during the entire period of the building, since 2016 till the end of 2018 when we moved in. And you see that me directly, some of my friends, some of the relatives of my wife took part in that, in building that house with our own hands. And by the time we moved in, it still lacked some places, the decoration or some pieces. Also, the parts of the building, they're still lacking that I mentioned in the passport for this house. This is why they have not been registered. So how did you calculate the price? Based on the material in the technical passport, as far as I understand. Yeah, is it a method? Yeah. The inspector calculated it, technical inspector, and he mentioned the amount without consultations with us. He used his own methods and he mentioned it in the document. Purely technically, I put those figures in the declaration to insert the numbers according to the documents that I have. So what kind of work did you personally do when building this house? Some wall painting, some work on the ceiling, not just me personally, but my father-in-law, the cousins of my wife. They work in this business on small buildings, mainly in the village, but they work with concrete, with heating, with the tiles, and the part of the stairs. They did quite a lot, either for free as a present or for a reduced price because it was done for the relatives. This was the kind of help we received from them. Okay, please remind us which one of your cars costed 148,250 hryvnia. This is Ford Escape 2015. The one that I use now, according to an ACP explanation, it was the payment that I paid at the auction in the US. It was the auction price plus the fee of the auction. Did you pay abroad? It was a SWIFT transfer through the bank. It was based on the invoice. I provided the commission the copy of this SWIFT wire transfer. How much did you pay of customs? The customs fee was 75,000 hryvnia. I have the corresponding document to confirm it that I also provided to the commission. And also broker services, that was $300, $100, that was the delivery to the garage, whether it was renovated. And also there was shipping by sea to Odessa. Could you please inform us where you or possibly your family was in the first months of the war, first 1 or 2 months? The first day we were in our house. Then on this day, I started organizing the evacuation of my family, first to the western Ukraine. And after several days, I transferred them to the border. They crossed on foot. And then they were with some of our friends, first in Poland, then in Germany until May of 2022, and they came back. And for how long did they stay in the western Ukraine before they crossed? A day or two? Could you name the region? Zakarpattia Oblast. Were this with some people that you know? Yes, this was a woman that we know, an employee of the state agency for architecture and city building, who also went home, and she had a problem with getting there, so she asked whether we could take her on. And because I was driving my own car, we just made a technical stop there before we took our family abroad. Several days. There was a technical stop for several days. Yeah, but it was a very difficult trip. Children got sick. Yeah, I understand. What happened with the career of this person after the situation became more or less stable, at least here in Kyiv? She still works in the state agency of architecture and city building. She occupies the same position. She's the chief inspector of building supervision. She moved to Lviv Oblast, and she works there in the regional department. But since then, she did not have any raises or privileges. Since then, nothing related to that. Why did she move from Kyiv? With the fact that we rotate human resources, and she's from Zakarpattia Oblast, we don't yet have the need to change people there. So we had an issue to provide some human resources in Lviv Oblast, and it's quite convenient for her because she can go easier to her village from there. It was good for her, and she agreed, and we needed a new person in Lviv Oblast. So that's why we made the decision. She is a rather professional employee. She's worked since the first day in this agency. She's well known to the entire country by actively consulting all the centers for providing administrative services. And she takes part as a speaker in all events organized by us. And she has very good recommendations since the very beginning. A question. We have information about crossing the border. You said that you stayed with your colleagues for a couple of days. And you left Kyiv about the second to the third day of the invasion. Why did your wife and son cross the border only on May 19th, 2022? It's crossing back. That's what I said. it's their crossing back. Okay. But in this case, we don't see the crossing there. It's the question to the border service, border guard service who needed to do something. This means that you don't have the information about them crossing there, but they were queuing there for about 12 hours, where the volunteers helped them. They brought them water, some hot drinks, so that they would be able to stay there for 12 hours. And they did it together with all the other people. They had all the passports. And January 1st, 2023, and January 7th, 2023, is it going out or going in? Or is it going out and going in? It's a separate trip. It's not related with those events that you mentioned before. And another question for you. Okay. Thank you. I would like to ask, going back to your response on border crossing and going to Crimea, according to your posts on social network called Facebook, and the NGOs also pay attention to that, you were in August 2016 in Crimea. That is evidenced by your posts. Were you a public official at the time? What is your attitude to Crimea being attended by the public official? Do you understand the risks? And based on your posts on Facebook, we can also see that you are seemingly having a vacation, because those are the posts with the sea landscape and the Paradise Park or Ayvazovsky Park. How could you comment on this? Thank you for the question. If it's 2016, indeed, since 2013, I've been a public official. And in 2016, I worked, I think, in the State Registry Service of Ukraine or somewhere other place in the system, in the agency that was later dissolved. I informed my superiors about wanting to visit my parents. Legally, it was not prohibited. And I have already mentioned that my mother is the closest person to me after my chosen family, my wife and son. So I visited her. She did organize this trip on one of the days, indeed, to spend the time with my wife, who was pregnant about 6 or 7 months, and she decided to organize the trip around Crimea for us, which is evidenced by these photographs. Of course, the situation changed after the full-scale invasion, and basically before that as well. We had, I think, a very good reason to visit, to make all of the new members of my family meet the other members of my family. But after that, I refused any kind of invitations from my mom or somebody else to visit Crimea, because I realized, not just in terms of risks, because even if when I worked in an ACP, I asked the internal control, I asked my superiors if there are risks, if it is allowed, because I don't see a legal prohibition to do that. My question was addressed nowhere. Well, if it's your parents, then go. This is the answers they received. Of course, in the today's position, in the previous position, we're not talking about this, because the level of my access to certain information with limited access and my responsibility, these risks today are huge. But at the time, I did not see the risks as big as that, and I did not have additional difficulties during those brief trips.
Thank you. I would like to ask you if...
Laura, одну секундочку.
Just a second, please.
I would like to ask you if in the current position or in the previous positions you have occupied in the private sector, have you ever interacted directly or indirectly with politicians, whether you felt pressure or undue influence in the way you were conducting your work from politicians primarily?
Дякую за запитання.
Thank you for your question. At the previous position, well, it depends on what level of politicians you are talking about. I did not interact with some leaders of the parties or like office of the president. I did not have any experience of communication or interaction at my previous posts. It never happened. But there is such a practice that sometimes some people's deputies, some MPs, they sometimes come to this state inspection of architecture and city building. We are very transparent. We are open, so people can come easily. So, for example, the former head, he could invite me to be present at such meetings. So maybe in such a format, I could meet with some MPs, but there were no other some like joint things that we did or some appeals personally to me. Things like that never happened. When I became the head of the state inspection of architecture, well, I became the first person in the organization, so I became a public person, and of course, as such, I sometimes interact with certain public officials. But speaking about influence, I cannot imagine a situation like this, that someone could try to make such an influence on me, because it would really kind of hit hard my system of values.
Дякую.
So are you happy with the answer, Laura?
Так, шановні члени комісії, чи є у когось ще
So dear members of the commission, does anybody have any questions? Andriy, do you have a brother? No? Okay. And another question? Okay. I'm just thinking how to put it in the right words. So the colleague that you mentioned, who gave your the house to you as a gesture of solidarity, it's Gana Fedorova. Yes. And another question? So we know that land in Gniden is not very cheap, and it's sometimes kind of hard to get a land plot. So could you describe how you were able to get this land plot where you constructed a house with your own hands, as you said? Well, you can see from my declaration about the pricing, it depends how you see like cheap or not cheap, because we were able to get this land plot. It was one of them, the land plots was alienated, and all of these procedures, these privatization procedures, they were according to all laws and regulations. There was a relevant decision of the village council, and the alienation of this land plot happened before we got married. And for what I know, there is such a practice in this village for all people, all families who lived in this locality for a long time and who were engaged in this or that way in this collective farming enterprise. So not just the family of my wife, but thousands of people who live there. So the village council decided, according to the constitution and legislation, they decided to give them these land plots. So your wife's family is from this locality? Yes, yes. That is why. Okay, so I see that the members of our commission do not have any other questions. So, Alexandra, I would like to thank you for the information that you shared. Thank you for your time that you have taken, and please leave the documents that you wanted to share with the secretariat. We will look them through. Thank you. Thank you and goodbye.